do you believe that Donald Trump motivated and was responsible for the violence, even if he didn't walk with them to the Capitol?
He was the person most responsible for what happened at the Capitol, and that he caused what would happen at the Capitol, and that it was foreseeable to him.
What if the people who stormed the Capitol didn't think they were acting on their own, but believed they were following orders from the President of the United States? In this exchange, Ms. Ross forces that question into the open, using the words of the rioters themselves and the findings of the special counsel to confront the idea that January 6th was spontaneous. The testimony paints a picture of a crowd that believed it was invited, directed, and justified.
Mr. Smith, many of us were here on January 6th and directly experienced what happened. Yet some of my colleagues across the aisle still insist that Trump had no role in the violence. In videos of the raging battle against our brave Capitol Police officers, many rioters were screaming things like, "We were invited here by the president." Mr. Smith, did your investigation uncover evidence that some of the rioters had gone to the Capitol because they really believed the president had invited them there?
There were, I believe there's video of rioters saying, in fact, that, and as we pled in the indictment, the knowing lies that Donald Trump put out in the weeks leading up to that led to a level of distrust. And he ultimately knew that the crowd at the Capitol, or at the Ellipse, I should say, was angry before he told them to march toward the Capitol.
And we've seen report after report of rioters who have said that if Donald Trump had not convinced them that the election had been stolen, they might not have even come to Washington. I'm going to share some quotes from some of those rioters. "I believed I was following up on the instructions of former President Trump," one rioter said about going to the Capitol. "I marched to the U.S. Capitol because President Trump said to do so," another said. "He personally asked for me to come that day," said another. Can you give us a few examples of Trump's rhetoric and language that inspired people to go to the Capitol believing that they were going on the president's direct order?
One instance I can recall is during the speech he gave to his supporters, and in context, his supporters, he told them to come to Washington, D.C. and be wild. He was on notice that they were angry, and he told that crowd, "We can't let this happen." And he told them that, my recollection is multiple times, at a time when there was nothing that could be done to stop the outcome of the election, but to obstruct it. In addition to that, he told them when there is fraud, you can go by different rules. And my recollection is there is a videotape of when he's making these sort of statements and he's saying that they need to fight if they want to save their country. There are, in fact, people in the crowd chanting, "Fight for Trump." That all happened during the Ellipse speech before people headed towards the Capitol and the Capitol was attacked.
And did your investigation find any of the rioters trying to use Trump's words and calls to action as a defense in the criminal cases against them? I can read you something from your special counsel report.
I was just going to say, I think we cited a number of rioters who ultimately admitted that they had committed their crimes at the behest and in the name of Donald Trump.
Okay. And it happened several times, and many of those accounts are on page 86 and page 87 of the special counsel report. Even the lawyer for Jacob Chansley, also known as the QAnon shaman, highlighted that his words, how the words affected his client. He heard the words of the president, he believed them, he genuinely believed them, and he thought that the president was actually going to walk with them to the Capitol. For my final question, Mr. Smith, do you believe that Donald Trump motivated and was responsible for the violence that occurred on that day, even if he didn't walk with them to the Capitol?
Yes, as we stated in our report, the results of our investigation following the facts and following the law was that he was the person most responsible for what happened at the Capitol, and that he caused what happened at the Capitol, and that it was foreseeable to him.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have two UCs.
Joan can state her unanimous consent request.
I asked unanimous consent to enter into the record a tweet from Representative Biggs on January 7th, 2021, in which he said, quote, "Yesterday, criminal rioters hijacked a joint session of Congress."
Objection. Without objection.
And the second one is a unanimous consent to enter into the record an interview from March 2024 on the Capitol Hill show, in which you called on those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th to be, quote, "held accountable because, quote, that's the way our system does work and should work."
Without objection.
This segment goes directly to one of the most contested questions surrounding January 6th. Why did so many people believe they were supposed to be at the Capitol, and who put that belief in their minds? Ms. Ross centers her questioning on the voices of the rioters themselves, not political commentary. Their own statements show how Trump's words shaped their understanding of what they were doing and why they were there. Jack Smith confirms that investigators found extensive evidence showing that Trump knew the crowd was angry before he told them to march. That detail is critical. It means the speech at the Ellipse did not occur in a neutral setting. It happened after weeks of false claims about a stolen election, claims that fueled distrust and resentment. By the time Trump addressed the crowd, the emotional conditions were already set. The repeated quotes from rioters remove any ambiguity about how they interpreted Trump's message. Some said they believed they were acting on his instructions. Others said they came because he personally asked them to. These are not vague impressions. They are direct statements from people who later faced criminal charges. Their words show that Trump's messaging did more than express political anger. It created a sense of authorization. Smith's testimony also focuses on specific language Trump used that framed the moment as extraordinary and justified extraordinary actions. Phrases about the election being stolen, about needing to fight, and about not letting the country be taken away sent a message that normal rules no longer applied. When Trump told supporters that when there is fraud, different rules apply, he was signaling that normal legal boundaries could be ignored. That kind of language carries weight when delivered by a sitting president to an already agitated crowd. The idea that Trump invited supporters to Washington and told them it would be wild is not treated as harmless hype in this testimony. Investigators viewed it as part of a pattern that encouraged people to see the day as a decisive moment. Combined with claims that the election had been stolen and that the country was being taken from them, that rhetoric helped shape how people justified their actions. Ross also brings in how some rioters tried to use Trump's words as part of their defense. That detail is powerful because it shows that this belief did not disappear after January 6th. Even in court, some defendants argued that they acted in response to Trump's call. The reference to Jacob Chansley's attorney is especially telling. His lawyer argued that Chansley genuinely believed the president was going to walk with them to the Capitol. That belief reflects how seriously some participants took Trump's statements. Smith's answer to Ross's final question is one of the strongest in the hearing. He states clearly that Trump was the person most responsible for what happened and that the violence was foreseeable. That is not a political opinion. It is the conclusion of a criminal investigation based on evidence, interviews, and documented behavior. Foreseeability matters because it speaks to whether the consequences were predictable based on what Trump knew and said. This exchange also pushes back against the claim that January 6th was simply the result of independent actors making bad choices. The testimony shows a chain of influence. False claims, emotional buildup, direct calls to action, and a crowd that believed it had permission. It presents January 6th not as an accident, but as a moment shaped by repeated messaging from the highest office in the country. For viewers, this segment reframes responsibility. It does not deny that individuals committed crimes. It shows how those individuals understood their actions within a narrative created by Trump. The hearing makes clear that leadership matters, especially when emotions are high and trust in institutions is being undermined. By grounding the discussion in recorded statements, courtroom testimony, and the special counsel's findings, this moment strips away the idea that the president's words were just talk. It shows how words became motivation, how motivation became action, and how action turned into violence. The conclusion reached here is not built on speculation. It is built on what people said, what Trump said, and what investigators confirmed. This exchange leaves little room for the argument that Trump was a distant observer. According to the investigation, he shaped the environment, fueled the anger, and sent people toward the Capitol knowing how charged the situation already was. That reality forces a harder conversation about responsibility, leadership, and the real-world consequences of presidential rhetoric.